items on the left, so we can return to tab 3. I just spoke, Dr. Strickland, my apologies when I introduced your section 3, not tab. We will return to tab 3 to hear from Madison Moffett regarding House Bill 2419 by the drink. This is a final report for approval and a vote today.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, members. Today, I'm going to present the final report on the liquor by the drink tax and restaurant regulations for your approval. Like the chairman mentioned, you can find it under tab 3. We prepared this report in response to Senate Bill 2262 by Senator Briggs and House Bill 2419 by Representative Vanis during the 112th General Assembly. The bill directed the Commission to study the liquor by the drink tax and other similar taxes for on-premise consumption, the licensing, permitting, and other fees under Title 57, Chapters 4 and 5 for the restaurant industry, staffing challenges concerning server permits, wages, and the applicable training necessary to operate such restaurants, as well as other barriers to entry for restaurants that may be minimized or mitigated as identified by the Commission during the study. Since we presented the draft report at the last meeting and after an internal review and discussion with members and stakeholders, staff were concerned that evidence does not warrant making changes to Tennessee's post and hold laws, and this draft recommendation has been removed from the final report. The corresponding changes are reflected on page 2 and page 21 of the report. However, the recommendation to make opening and operating a restaurant easier for businesses without reducing state and local revenue or compromising public health and safety remains unchanged. To conclude, the final report recommends that both the Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission inform applicants that it accepts temporary occupancy and use permits for liquor license applications, and that the Strategic Technology Solutions continue to explore ways to automate the liquor licensing application process further. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I request approval of this final report.
Thank you, Ms. Moffett, for that update and presentation of this final report. Members of the Commission, any questions for Ms. Moffett on these changes, both the board, etc.? Seeing none, this is a voting approval of this report. I'll entertain a motion. Motion to approve. Second. Motion and a second. Any discussions or questions before we take the vote? Seeing none, all in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Likewise say no. The ayes have it. Thank you. Please approve.
Thank you.
All right. We now move to tab 4. Also, a vote for final approval of Senate Bill 2827, House Bill 2729 for emergency communications on college and university campuses. Moreno, your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. I'm pleased today to present for your approval the final draft of the Commission's report on emergency communications on college and university campuses. Follows tab 4 in your document. The Commission took up this study in May 2022 in response to Senate Bill 2827 by Senator Hensley and House Bill 2729 by Representative Ogles, introduced in the 112th General Assembly. As amended, they directed the Commission to perform a comprehensive evaluation of the routing and storage of emergency communications on the campuses of colleges and universities in Tennessee. Today, I'll just like to call your attention to a few areas where staff has added information and made some minor revisions since the draft report was presented at our September meeting, including a slight change to the report's third recommendation. Beginning on page 4, after receiving some feedback from TBI regarding their ability to compile off-campus crime statistics, the report's third recommendation now reads that the Commission recommends that the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation develop a process to include statistics for crimes reported within 1/2 mile of each college or university campus in its annual crime on campus reports. We recognize that although existing location data reported by campus and non-campus law enforcement agencies makes compiling these statistics possible, TBI does not currently have a system to do so, and that they want to be sure that there are no changes to the reporting process that could lead to double counting or compliance issues. Turning next to page 10, staff's updated section on costs and features of call recording software and records management systems. And on page 11, we added the section on benefits of recording emergency calls, including quotes from Austin Peay's Chief of Police, Sandy Williams, who was interviewed by local news after a draft report came out. Next on, you turn back to page 28. That's where staff revised the paragraph to support the revised third recommendation I mentioned a moment ago. And then continuing on that same page, staff's added sections on campus climate surveys at schools in Tennessee and across the country, and another section explaining how programs to educate students and support victims of crimes on campus can often lead to increases in crime statistics and a perception that crime itself is on the rise. Given the low percentage of victims who report incidents to authorities documented elsewhere in the report, efforts to increase reporting should not be discouraged by higher crime statistics. Those are the only substantive changes since the draft report, and the report's other two recommendations remain the same, which are, first, because recording of calls to campus police and security departments could help ensure compliance with federal and state crime reporting requirements, help police with investigations, and protect institutions in case of disputes over facts of a report, the Commission recommends that the state encourage colleges and universities to record and retain recordings of calls regarding crimes and conduct violations to their campus police and security departments by providing additional funding to help post-secondary institutions obtain or improve emergency call recording systems. And the second, because our research has found that more incidents of sexual assault are reported to campus Title IX authorities than to law enforcement, the Commission recommends that Tennessee follow examples set by Louisiana, Maryland, and New York by requiring colleges and universities in Tennessee, which some of them are already doing, to publish to their websites annual statistics for complaints of sexual misconduct and assault reported to their campus Title IX authorities. With that, I thank you for your attention to this topic and happy to answer any questions you may have about the final report before proceeding to vote for its approval.
Thank you. Dr. Miller, any comments or questions from members of the commission? All right, seeing none, thank you for this report. And this is a final approval vote. We entertain a motion to approve. So got the motion by Representative Butler, seconded by Mayor Brown. Motion second. Comments, questions? For discussion prior to the vote? Yes, Mayor Brown.
I do want to say this is very excellent work, and I know it's not really the focus of this study, but there were a couple of comments throughout this report. One is like a majority, talked about a majority of institutions having systems in place, but not all. And then I know there's an annual report that is required for each school that has to be given to the TDI. One of the things that I don't understand, and perhaps in your study we were able to find out, the process for reporting crimes, I understand, varies by different schools. So some for allegations, incidents, some require it to go to the school first. If it is something that rises to the level of needing to be reported to sheriff's department or the police or federal agency, is that on the school to make that determination? Does the school do the report? Did you find out anything about that? And again, I know that's a little bit outside of what you're looking at, but I was just curious.
No, thank you. I'll do my best to answer that. Some of that is going to vary depending on whether the police or security at that particular campus is a law enforcement agency, or if they're just a security and the outside law enforcement is going to have the jurisdiction. But either way, the schools are responsible for reporting any incidents to the TBI system, the TIBERS, the same as any law enforcement agency. So they don't have to be a police, a law enforcement agency. They're putting in those reports of those incidents, and through the requirement that they have to maintain a crime log. So everything that gets reported to them is entered into that log. And then we'll follow up with being entered as an incident into the system. So it should generally function the same either way and be, it's not like an administrative type of decision. It's they're following guidelines. They're following the same guidelines that law enforcement agency is going to, as far as determining, keeping a record of it and entering it into the system.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Anderson.
I didn't, when I read it, I didn't see anything in there about capacity. And there was a larger scale incident at a school for selling texting. Very similar to what happened here in Nashville at the capacity issues getting that information out. Did I overlook that in the report, or is that something that's outside of the report?
Thank you, Mayor. That would be something that would be kind of outside the scope of this report. I think and it's kind of something we struggled with a little bit, that referring to everything as emergency communications was kind of more broad than what the focus of the bills were and what we were asked to look at specifically. That it was the handling of the calls coming in to a place of security on campus, and how those crimes are reported. So getting into sort of the bigger areas of emergency communications, things like that, wasn't really something we went into here.
Right. That's what I just had.
Is it a requirement for the universities or colleges to post on their websites annually any type of incidents that have happened within that year? So that, say, parents or grandparents want to look at that college, then they have a child or a grandchild that's going to be attending, to be able to see, what type of incidents that went on there that may lead to them from exploring that college.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, the federal act, the Clery Act, federal law requires the posting of those statistics for the 3 years. What Tennessee's law actually, and it's something that's part of one of the recommendations. It doesn't specifically require the schools to post them online. It was written in 1989 when there wasn't a lot of online in existence. Right now, those TBI reports are required to be made available at request. They're given to employees or students, but it's not required to be public. So that was in that third recommendation, that colleges and universities publish to their websites statistics for their institutions from this report, which they are already required to make available upon request. So we're saying in there that make it like the federal. If you go to any school's website, sometimes it's hard to find, but you'll look for that Clery report, the annual security report. They're required to put out there. So those are out there, and we want the state reports to mirror that, which many schools are already doing, but we want to make sure it's covered by it.
Quick question, a real-time question. Terrible situation that occurred at Belmont just a few days ago. Would that have fallen through the cracks, so to speak, and would it not now fall into recommendation number 3?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I don't recall exactly the location where it happened. I believe it was off campus.
It was off campus, but I think it was within that half mile. So that normally would not show up in statistics
As
today, but it would follow your recommendation.
Correct. That was something. Things like that were, some of the research that we found about students aren't necessarily confined to campus with their activities, and so having a little bit of information about what's going on in the area around campus is helpful in looking at the overall safety of students when said parents are looking at a school. So that it does seem like that is an example of something that would, the need for that third recommendation to give more information for things like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Merritt, one follow-up question. Does the report include a recommendation for the Blue Box emergency call on every campus? I happen to be a parent of so many of them. There were no Blue Boxes. And my question would be, is that part of the emergency communication discussion within the
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is not something that's covered under the recommendations. Among the schools that we talked to, some were leaning towards the idea that everybody has cell phones in their pockets at all times, kind of has taken away some of the interest in putting more things like Blue Boxes out. I think it's a campus by campus basis if you feel your campus has a need for them in certain areas. And then, looking at schools taking a look at these statistics and maybe seeing if there are areas that are hotspots or trouble to warrant such a thing. But what would be covered would be if you're on a campus that has, those call boxes and that call goes to a campus police authority, it's not dialing 911. That call wouldn't necessarily get recorded in a lot of places. And so that would be an example of the kind of call that would then get recorded if schools were doing more of that. So it falls under to some extent, but that would be it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? We have a current motion by Crawford and seconded by Mayor Brown. Seeing none, all in favor to accept this report, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Accept the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So we, in reverse order, and agenda that covers TACIR report, it now takes us to other business, direct delivery. Mr. Chair.
The only other business we have, if the members look at the bottom of the agenda, we have some tentative potential meeting dates, January 17, 18, or 24, 25. Staff is reaching out and surveying members as to which of those dates work best for you. But we will be meeting in January. That meeting will be covering our annual infrastructure report, our Tennessee Valley Authority report, the draft report of housing affordability will be presented there for along with some other items. So just be on the lookout for that email from April as far as potential meeting dates. And that's actually all I have under business.
No, that's great. Happy to not have other. All right, any other points of conversation? I feel like saying until we meet again. Yes, sir.
I'll make it easier with the chairman. Thank you. Very interesting, brought up an interesting point earlier, something he and I talked about offline, about the issue of school buses and the time that some getting ways. My duties here may not allow me to know what y'all done in the past, but emergency equipment, fire trucks, ambulances, we're going to start running up to probably a critical stage over the next 24 months, certainly maybe sooner, about things we ordered we ordered my last meeting, we had some December 21 people. We ordered 70 fire trucks to go into volunteer fire. When we looked at cheap them up, the bigger offer is $30,000 more a piece for each vehicle that we purchased. So we know there's quite a demand issue out there, not much supply. We several counties around know pretty well about having secondary sources, but those who are trying to get miles on them are be restricted. So I see that as being a problem, not that it's something that's studied here or not, but if it's not, I'd like to be sure that we can look at those acts.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's very valuable. We municipality have 2 fire trucks in order, both at 18-month intervals, neither of which are on schedule. They're both going to be later than the 18-month turnaround. I think it's a very good problem. Director, remind me, in my tenure, I think during Chairman Carter's term, we changed it to where we, the commission, could request a study with a certain vote percentage.
That's correct, and it's slightly more, it's more than a simple majority for a commission requested study. I believe it is, do you recall the count?
I think it's 2/3.
2/3? But
That's awesome.
Certainly, first of all, it is absolutely something that the commission could study. What I'll do is I'll go back and check the bylaws as far as the actual vote requirement. And all it would take would be, I would recommend motion at our January meeting. We could add that to the work program. Unlike normally legislative approval we add at our spring meeting, but commission request study, we can add it any time. It's just something that, this is the kind of thing we haven't been capturing, that kind of requirement, because of April with the bylaws. It falls outside of the requirement for the infrastructure study, for example, which was intentionally designed not to capture rolling stock and items like that. But these are critical items that we should still be tracking. So I think it would be an excellent thing for us to take a look at, especially with all the supply chain problems still happening. If you want to give me just a second, Chairman, I'll confirm that we need to wait to January.
And I think, possibly getting the verbiage together, Mayor, if you're okay, at the January meeting, we can entertain it.
Got a quick comment, it's very timely. The Tennessee chapter of the American Public Works Association is meeting at the Building Tree, and they have equipment on display on Digger Street.
Can you buy it?
But I talked to a couple of suppliers this morning about this very topic, and 12 to 18 months is kind of the norm. But I picked an opportunity from some folks in this group, just let you go by there and take a look, talk to some of the suppliers, get some contact information. But the Tennessee chapter of APWA is a good resource for this very topic.
So it's at a food truck, starting from. It's at a food truck.
Instead of food trucks, it's garbage trucks, street sweepers, and
Wow.
all those fun things. So,
Senator.
Is this a trailing supply chain issue because it's still in shipping?
I've been told, and I can only answer anecdotally, other mayors have far more knowledge than I do. I've been told it's both a supply, but I've also been told it is an incredibly small number of companies that produce these trucks. And I don't quite understand, not only is there a limited number of people that we can choose from by regulation, but those suppliers themselves have become smaller and harder. It seems to be compounded by the supply chain. But I also think that there's just such a finite pool of companies that build these trucks that we're approved to buy from. Is yet another part of the conversation.
And high demand in these areas.
It is supply and demand right now.
Which California just sends some theirs.
Oh, that's kind of what it is.
And we bring a fire truck from your city.
All right. Representative Coe.
Just one question to clarify the motion or what all of this include? Fire, emergency services, public works. That would be emergency services, so that would be
There together. I heard school buses earlier.
There is some concern with school buses, but breaking that from large equipment. Again, large vehicles like public works departments, that is the problem with equipment on the fire. These Dixie counties, surrounding counties that I talked to.
Davidson County has a directed trash trucks as well.
Okay. I was just wondering, there's a lot of metropolitans now that are going to troop carriers, for lack of a better term, in their large vehicles that can, go over wood, fire, nails, glass, whatever, to get the police officers in the situation. And I want to see that may could be included as well, but not the cruiser, just the large vehicle.
And it does require a consent.
17 members. So we're afraid of that. No, thank you. I can't speak empirically, but hopefully being Florida Hall in January.
You also,
Do also take. That's yet another thing. Why we're not Florida Hall. All hearts and minds. We're adjourned.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.